Howdy, this is Karen from Karen Dawn Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to add a pattern to your queue on Ravelry. So the first thing that you need to do is find the pattern that you plan to add to your queue. For this example, I'm going to use the Fafner hat. Once you're on that pattern page on Ravelry, you go up to the top right and you click on the button where it says Add to Queue. When you do that, a window is going to open, and this gives you all the information to fill out for your queue. Up here at the top, there's a checkbox that you can choose to include this Ravelry download on your wish list. And basically what that means is if you do not already have this pattern, you can click this checkbox, and there is another place on Ravelry that has your wish list of patterns that you can either use for yourself, or you can actually have other people view your wish list, so they could potentially buy the pattern as a gift for you. So if you want to include this pattern on your wish list, go ahead and use the checkbox. I'm not going to do that for this example, so I'm going to uncheck that. The next section tells you who the designer is, and then right here is pretty important. This gives you the yarn information for the pattern. So it is a worsted weight yarn, and it uses between 180 and 200 yards. So keep that in mind as you go to the next section, which is which yarn you plan to use for this pattern. So you can actually, if you know specifically what yarn you want to use, you can actually type that in right in this box. Or if you have your yarn in your stash, which I highly recommend, you can click this link to use stash yarn and select from your stash. So once I clicked that link, it opened up this section right here, and it wants you to select a yarn from your stash. This box right here is a search box, and you can actually type in, if you know the name of the yarn or the colorway name, you can type that in, and you can, and it will go directly to that. Or you can search through your yarns by weight. The nice thing is that Ravelry will automatically default to the weight of yarn that the pattern uses, so worsted weight, pattern weight, or if you select the drop-down box, you can see all the other weights of yarn. So if it's a pattern that you can use different weights of yarn on, or a pattern that has options for worsted or fingering weight, then you can make that specific selection. For this one, I'm going to stick to the worsted weight that is used in the pattern. The next section, I'm going to move this up a little bit more. The next section actually gives you the yarn that you have in your stash, so worsted weight yarn, and then it tells you how much you have in your stash. So this pattern is 180 to 200 yards, and so you can look down and make sure that you have enough yarn in your stash for this project. So I'm looking, and I don't necessarily want to use this one since it has a whole bunch of yarn, but this one right here that has 218 yards, that probably would work. And I'm just, kind of randomly choosing yarn right here for the project, but you can definitely go through your stash and decide what yarn will actually work the best. But for the sake of this project, I'm actually going to use this top one right here. Notice that I have 2 pages of worsted weight yarn, so if I select the 2, it will take me to the next page and I can see some more options. But like I said, for purposes of this example, I'm just going to use this yarn right here. So it's very easy. You just select this yarn by clicking the Use button. So when I do that, it is automatically going to put that yarn in here for the project. So you can see my picture of the yarn and then the details about it. If this is a project that uses more than one color or more than one yarn, then you can go ahead and select a second yarn. You can do the same selection process. Since this is only a one color hat, I don't need to select any more yarn, so I'm going to go over here to the green X and click it to close out that section. The next thing that you can do is add tags to your yarn, or to your project. And this can be anything that you want. I'm not actually going to add tags specifically for the project, but I will put a couple of examples just to show you how to do it. Remember that tags are separated by spaces, not commas. So if you have a multi-word tag, it needs to actually be one word, because if you use a space, then it'll separate it as two different tags. So I might want to use the tag hat or something like that. And maybe I'm doing this as a Christmas gift. And so maybe I'm going to put Christmas gift. And again, this is something that is two words, but because it's a tag, I want to make it one word. The next section is who are you making it for? And these sections are all optional. You do not have to fill these out, but if you would like to do so, make sure that you go ahead and fill out each section. But again, if you don't want to, you can skip it. Since this hypothetical example is a Christmas gift, I'm going to say it's a Christmas gift for my husband. So I'm going to put his name in the Make For section. And then finish by, well, I need to finish it by Christmas. So if you click the calendar button right there, it will pop this calendar up. And then you can select, so I'm 2016, December 25th. So I need to finish by Christmas. And if you want to write any notes, you can do that. These are notes for yourself. They will technically show up on your queue. Your queue is public, so keep that in mind, especially if you are making a Christmas gift and you want to keep it a secret. But you can include anything you want in your note. I'm just going to put something in there so you can see what it looks like when we get to looking at the queue. So now I have filled in all of the information, and I can have two options. I can save changes, or I can save and adjust position. Save changes is going to automatically save this to your queue and put it at the very bottom of your queue. Save and adjust position will allow you to choose where in the queue you would like this project to be. So since the save changes basically just closes out this window and adds this to the queue, I'm going to show you save and adjust position. So I'm going to click that button, and I need to actually get this window back down so you can see it better. Hold on just a second. Nope, now I'm moving things in my queue around. Hold on. Okay, so what I've done is I've actually moved the window up a little too high, and now I am not able to move it back down. So if that happens to you, probably best to close the window and then just open your queue elsewhere. But for the sake of showing this, basically this is the top thing in my queue, so 1 through 5. And I can take this pattern, let's say I want to make it number 2. I actually just click on, so see the crosshairs there. I click on the pattern, hold my mouse button down, and then I'm able to move it around. When I get to where I want it, I let go of the mouse button and it will automatically put it in that number of the queue. And then you can close this and it will be in your queue. So I'm going to close it. And now if you look at this pattern page, so this is the pattern page itself, not your it's not a project page, it's a pattern page. You'll see that it says that it's number 4 in your queue. So let's go ahead and take a look at it in the queue. If you go up here to My Notebook and hover over this, it will bring you the drop-down menu, and you want to go down here to Queue and select that. When you do that, it will open up your queue. And I made this number 4, so right here you can see here's the one that we just added. So I'm going to show you the details, all the information that we filled in. So this gives you the name of the pattern and the designer, and this is actually a link. And so if you click on this, it will take you to the pattern page. If you go here, this is the yarn that the pattern calls for. And this is also a link, and if you click on that, it will actually take you to the page for that yarn on Ravelry. So you can actually get some more information about the yarn. You can see people who have it stashed and projects. Those are things I will show you in another tutorial. So you can actually look at the yarn page. Right here is the yarn that you are planning to use for this project. And this link will take you to the yarn page, just like that one did. But this link here will take you to your stash page. So this is the yarn that you have actually stashed. So I will open up that link and show you. So there's the yarn that you have actually stashed. And the nice thing about this is it says that you have put this yarn aside for this project. And technically, since this is an example, I actually had chosen this yarn for another project. So it's showing 2 projects right now. For you, that shouldn't happen if you're just adding the first project for the yarn in your queue. But you can see there's the Fafner hat, number 4 in our queue. So it's nice because then you can go into your stash page and actually look to see, have I set this yarn aside for a project, or is it still available? So that's kind of a nice way of using the queue. We go back to our queue. We can see the next thing is our tags. And then here is that note. So if you add anything in your notes section, it will show up right there. And then it actually tells you when it is due, so you can kind of see your due date. If you need to edit any of the information, let's say we need to change the deadline. We don't want it due on Christmas Day, we want it due maybe a few days before. So it opens this box back up, and I'm going to select a different date. So let's say I want to actually finish it by December 22nd, and I save changes. And so now you can see it updated with December 22nd. And so that is how you add something to your queue. You can play around with your queue and reorder it in several ways. You can actually change the numbers. So let's say I want this to be number 2 and this to be number 1. I can actually change those numbers. And then if I scroll down here to the bottom, save new order, then that will change the order of the items that I have in my queue. So now if I go back up here, now this is number 1, and I had made it number 1. The other way that you can do that is if you look at this arrow right here, again, get that crosshair, and it says actually drag and drop to reorder. So I want to hold my mouse button down and move it down, and now it automatically becomes number 2. So you can play around with the order in your queue. Finally, the last thing that I think is really neat about adding projects to your queue, not only do you keep up with projects you're planning on doing, but it has this nice link right here. When you are ready to start your project, you click Start Project, and it's automatically going to open up a project page for you with all of this information filled out. What the pattern is, who it is made for, there are your tags that you added, here's the yarn that you're planning on using, and here's the first note right here about your project. So now this is in my projects page, and I can go up here and either click the pencil here or click over here to edit the project. And I already have a tutorial available for how to create a project page on Ravelry. And so if you go to that, you can see how to make changes to all of this information. But it's really nice because it just grabs that info from your queue and automatically adds it in. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have any questions or need any help, you can find me on Ravelry as Karen Dawn. Thanks, and happy knitting.